Welcome to the Canarian International meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy and I am an alcoholic.
And my name is Mick and I'm also an alcoholic, and we're serving as your secretaries today. Please join us in a moment's silence to remember the still suffering alcoholic, both inside and outside this meeting. And I've asked Stephen to do the preamble. Stephen, over to you.
There you go, Stephen, you're unmuted.
I am Stephen, I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thanks, Stephen. And a very warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, as you know, this is an old-timers meeting. And today we have Michael, where's he gone to me? Michael to come share with us. You're very welcome, Michael. You got about 40 minutes to do your thing. And I have you unmuted now. You're good to go.
All right.
Good man.
Thanks, Mossy. Thanks for chairing the meeting for us tonight, and everybody else for being here as well. I'm Michael. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm sober today to the grace of God and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and always share a grateful alcoholic. And the reason I share that is very, very simple. Like, you know, it tells me that everything I've learned worthwhile in my life, I've learned it in these rooms, through you people, good sponsorship in my life, through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and most important of all, a God as I understand God today. And them things saved my life and saved my sanity. And I don't make any bones about that. That's the truth. And I have to deal in truth today. Truth's the most important thing I have to practice today in my life, because I practiced deceit and dishonesty all my life, and it nearly put me into a brown box. And so I need to try to practice these things in all my affairs. And you know, my life, look back on it, I'm not going to go into a big drinking story, because as I found out when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that alcohol was only a symptom of what I suffered from. That the real disease is inside me. And I'm glad to hear that, to have heard that and listened to that. But I just grew up. I remember my first feeling of fear. And I suffered fear all my life. And I mean suffered fear all my life. Chronic fear. And I don't know what I was afraid of most of the time, but I was afraid. And you know, fear followed me. I remember the first fear I had in my life was my mother, God rest her, taking me to school. And that's a long time ago. I was only about 4 or 5, and I rebelled and I kicked and I just didn't feel good. And that was the rest of my school days, simple as that. Like, you know, grew up in fear. And I had a teacher that bullied me and physically beat me up and doing everything. And in them days, like if you came home and told your parents that you got beat up at school, they would nearly beat you up as well, like, because teachers were very, very well respected. But this man was something else, like. So, you know, that was the first, you know, a very young man picking up a resentment and fear, the two areas in my life that when I came into the fellowship that I had to deal with, but I didn't know that. And, you know, I picked up a drink at 16. And I needed that drink today. I looked back at it myself. I needed it to deal with life, the life that I had. My father died when I was only 12 years of age, and I became the breadwinner. I was in Scotland when I was 13 years of age working in the fields. So, you know, I didn't get much of an upbringing in life, very handy. And as I say, when I took that first drink, the effect it talks about in the book, the effect produced by alcohol. It was the effect that done me. I hated the sight of I hated drink, like, hated the taste of it. But by God, I needed it. You know, and that was it. And for the next 30 years, that was my crutch in life. I got married at 22, had 5 kids, and never was there for them. Like, And that's the bottom line word, like, you know, and that's not a very nice thing to have to deal with and have to share with, but that's the truth. I was there financially. I done my best financial, but no love or nothing, you know. And now to mental institutions and hospitals. That's where I spent my life, you know. And you know, every time, you know, I defended drink right up to the very end of my drinking. And drink took me to some terrible places in my life. So, you know, I didn't know, you know, when you don't know, you don't know, and that was it. I came into the fellowship at my 30s, my early 30s. And like that too, you know, it's no use saying, you know, I didn't know, and I didn't do anything and nothing happened. It's as simple as that. I didn't stay because I wasn't ready, I believe myself, and that was it. And you know, on after that, I knew what drink was doing to me, but I couldn't stop. Simple as that. And you know, the last time I came into these rooms, broken, everything gone from my life that was near and dear to me, and just couldn't handle life. Like, I remember sitting my last drink, sitting in a pub, and I couldn't leave it, and I couldn't walk away from it. It talks about in the book the jumping off point, and that's where I was, suicidal big time in my life, nowhere to run or nowhere to hide anymore. Like, and I thank God. I think the first thing in my life, I remember, I believe God working in my life when I walked out of that pub that day. There was a mate of mine. He was watching me. He knew the kind of state I was in. And he took me home and told me he would take me to a meeting that night. And he did. He took me to a meeting that night. And my God, I'll never forget that. Like, you know, I walked into that room and people made me welcome and shook me hand. And every time I go into a room of Alcoholics Anonymous now, I do the same thing. I go round everybody and shake their hand, because I don't know how anybody's feeling when they come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. It might be their first night, or they might be in for 40 years. You know, this disease is in the mind, and, you know, people suffer alone sometimes, like I did. And I came into them rooms then, like, and I spent the next year in these rooms suffering. And I mean suffering. Stopped drinking, but by God, I'll tell you, the emotional pain was unbelievable. And that I couldn't understand, because I came in here to stop drinking. But my God, it wasn't enough for me to stop drinking. And I'm grateful today to know that. But I didn't know, you know, and I suffered on until I nearly had a mental breakdown. And, you know, eventually something happened in my life. I was listening one night to the 3 parenting ideas being read out. I remember it very, very well at chapter 5. And I hated chapter 5 because it was telling me things that I wasn't doing. And I hated it being read. But I was listening this night to it, and it explained a lot of things to me. And the 3 parenting ideas was came up very, very strong in my mind. I said I was alcoholic and couldn't manage my own life. Now I looked at that, you know, for the first time in my life, honestly. I never was honest all my life. And you know, the three essentials of recovery are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And I was neither of the 3. But honesty was the one that hit me. Like, you know, it says to look back on my life and see how unmanageable my life was. And as I said, that's the first day going to school was the start of my unmanageability. Because I rebelled. I was one of these people that knew all the answers, even as a kid. But I didn't know anything, but I thought I knew everything. And I paid a big price for that. My pride and my ego was big. And right through my life, like, you know, unmanageability in my life was immense when I looked there. I'm unmanageable of every way. And you know the reason it was unmanageable? Because I know today I was born with the disease of alcoholism. And I'm wired the wrong way as a human being. I think different, act different, behave different to normal people. So that made my life completely and utterly unmanageable, because I done things upside down. You know, if somebody said white, I said black. So that was the unmanageability of my life. And then it went on to tell me that probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism. That's another sentence that I had to really look at, because I've been to the field of everybody that works in the field of alcoholism. Doctors, priests, counsellors, therapists, you name it, counsellors. And I know today, sitting on this chair here today, that no human power could relieve my alcoholism, you know. And when I come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and say, my name's Michael, I'm an alcoholic, and I can't manage my own life, and nobody can manage it for me, then where do I run and hide from them two statements? Where do I hide? Can't manage my own life, and nobody can manage it for me. And that was the truth, hitting me between the two eyes. So what do? I have a choice here at this stage. Do I carry on doing what I'm trying to do, or work that program in my life, or else die from the disease of alcoholism? Because I've seen a lot of my good mates dying from this disease, and I know it's a killer disease today, and I don't take that lightly. I was told that, and it sort of frightened me, to be honest. But that's the truth. And the third parent idea says that God could and would if he were sought, And that's the last thing I wanted to hear, because I grew up in a religion that told me, that if I'd done anything wrong, I was going to go to hell. And I went to my own personal hell, all right. But I know today, this is not a religious program. This is a spiritual program, and spirituality for me is looking and dealing with myself and try to do the right things in my life today. And I find that very, very important in my life. And anything I share here tonight's my own experience. I don't share about anybody else, because they're not the ones with the problem. My sponsor told me that. He says, Michael, be very careful who you talk about in rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're breaking people's anonymity. So I just share about my own experience, and that's all I can share about. I don't know what other people are doing, but what I have to do today. And them three parent ideas opened my mind. And the first thing that I got was a sponsor, a man that I heard sharing. He talked about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I went back many years where there weren't many people talking about a program like. And this man used to hurt me sharing. Again, he was hurting me because he was telling the truth, and I wasn't doing what he suggested, what he was talking about. And I asked that man to sponsor me, and he told me he would. And I thank God. You see, I'm dyslexic as well. I can't read or write very well. That's the way it was. I didn't know that till I got into Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm dyslexic. But that's no excuse for me, He took me through word by word the first 164 pages of the book. And I'm grateful for that. And he explained, in the doctor's opinion, what was wrong with me. Very, very simply, he told me that I had an allergy to the body, that every time I put alcohol into my system, it craved more. Now, I didn't know that. You'll think a man that's drank for 30 years would know that. I'm also allergic to penicillin. I was diagnosed very early in my life with penicillin, that I was allergic to it. So I couldn't take penicillin into my system because it would kill me. And it's the same with alcohol, but I didn't know that. So, I've accepted that. When I read that alcohol, I knew then that, I don't drink. I can't drink, and I can't think safely. There's 4 chapters dedicated to the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous in the book. That shows how important the first step is for me. And I had to accept the first 2 chapters talked about the doctor's opinion and Bill's story, explained the drinking and the mind and the body. And the second 2 chapters, talked about the mind, the real disease. It told me about the man that was didn't take a drink, stopped drinking, stayed sober for 25 years, and thought when he retired he could take a drink. Out came his bedroom slippers and the bottle, and he died from the disease of alcoholism. The second man, Jim, he was an alcoholic, but he didn't enlarge his spiritual life, and he was a car salesman, and he lost his job, and in a cafe one day, taking a sandwich and a glass of milk, and the thought struck his head to have a drink, a whiskey in his milk. And the next man, Fred, everything was going great in his life. He was an alcoholic. And, he was crossing the threshold for dinner, and the thought struck his mind to have a highball before dinner. That sorted my disease, the unmanageability of my disease, and my head thinking. That's my disease, and between me 2 ears. And I'm grateful for that advice too, because it told me, I haven't had a drink for a long, long time. But I'm left with the disease in my head. And I have that with me to the day I go into the box. And that's what there's programs there to help me to deal with that. And thank God for that power. You know, I found the chapter, that power, and the chapter We Agnostics in the book, 13 pages of reading. There's a lot of big words that I could never understand. But I read between the lines, it tells me in there where to find that power. And that power told me deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It says it might be obscured by pomp and all other things, but it says in the last analysis, it is only there it may be found. So that told me this was an inside job. And I know today this disease is an inside job. You know, everything's inside. You know, the disease is inside me, and the recovery is inside me as well. So that's what I have to try to practice. And I made a decision in step 3 to turn my will and my life over to the care of God many, many days ago. And up to today, it is held firm for me. It doesn't mean to say I get what I want, but I've learned that I have to accept God's will today, no matter what happens in my day. And that's been tough, all right. I've had a lot of tough curveballs thrown at me in my sober life, but I still didn't have to pick up a drink with it. I've got to accept God's will today in my life. And that's the best decision ever I made in my life, making that decision. And that decision helped me to get a pen and paper and sit down and look at the real issues in my life in step 4. The fears, resentment, and sex conduct. Now, I didn't talk about these things. These things were never seen the light of day in my life. They were all built inside me, and that's what caused me so much pain in my life. But I was fit to do it, thank God, fit to get my fears down on paper and see what fear was. And it told me in the book what fear was lack of faith. And I know that to be true today. I never had any faith. But today, faith is the most important thing in my life. But I had no faith. And talks about resentment. My God, I held that resentment from a teacher from the age of 8 years till I done my 5th step and at 47 years of age. And that's a long time to carry a hate. But that's what I done. And naturally, there was no peace in my life. Couldn't be. And sex conduct, which was not talked about, swept onto the carpet. But it's a big emotion. It's the same emotion as anything else. And I could talk about these things today, but I couldn't talk about them before. They're out in the open. I harm people through my behaviour, you know, through my behaviour. Low self-esteem was the biggest problem in that area, like. And I wanted to build myself up, and I walked through people's lives like a tornado, hurting people. So that was it. And that's the stuff I'd have shared in step 5 with a God of my understanding and a sponsor. And I really do thank God for the 5th step in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got rid of all the guilt, shame, and remorse out of my life that I carried about with me for 47 years of my life. My God, what a relief. And it talks about the promises in step 5. It says we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can feel alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. That powerful promise that happened to me at step 5. And the greatest one of all tells me that I'm building an arch, that I'm going to walk through a free man. My God, what a promise that was. A free man, a man that was never free in his life, shackled with the fears and all the things that goes with it. My sponsor told me to go home and look at where these defects of character took me in my life. And every one of them took me to a drink every time. Pride, riddled with pride. Couldn't see nothing but myself, my own life, selfishness, self-centeredness. Never seen good in people. How could you have a relationship with people like, you know, when you couldn't like them? And I know why I didn't like people, because I didn't like myself. How can you like other people when you don't like yourself? And that was me. Just building up a relationship with people like. So, you know, that pride. I never seen nature. I never seen anything good in life at all. I thought the world was out to get me. And then there was anger, a very angry human being. And my God, anger brought me to a lot of bad places as well. Broke off relationships with good people that tried to help me. So anger didn't do me any favors in my life. Then there was jealousy, riddled with jealousy, looking outside at other people instead of looking at myself. Many sleepless nights with jealousy, and envied people for what they had in their lives, because I couldn't reach the goal of doing it for myself through my disease. Greed, you couldn't give me enough of anything, and I mean anything. And that didn't make for good living, because it tramped on people's lives, you know, and they retaliated on me. And, you know, that wasn't very nice either. And lust, again, another big defect that I talked about there through my sex conduct. That wasn't good, you know, using people and walking over people and, you know, just for my own selfish needs. So, you know, that's the stuff I'd have asked God to remove in step 6 and 7. And it asked me there, am I willing? Am I entirely ready to let go of that stuff? And, you know, I look back on my life, and when I shared, I was glad to ask God to remove it from my life. Now, anything that turned up since I'd done that step, I deal with in step 10 today. Step 10 helps me to deal with that stuff. You know, it says, humbly ask God to remove these shortcomings. And my shortcomings are very, very many of them. I suffer from a lot of different things, like, you know, patience and tolerance. No patience. I'm a very impatient human being. I suffer from a lot of stuff. But I'm not cured. I'm not cured of this disease, and I'm not cured of my defects either. It says in the book, when these crop up, what I have to do with them later on in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I deal with them on that basis. And that power then helped me to sit down and make amends to the people I hurt in my life. I had to pray for willingness to make amends, because I couldn't say sorry to anybody. That was the way it was in my life. I never could say that word. Pride, again, wouldn't allow me to say sorry to anybody. But I was told I had to humble myself, and I had no problem when it came to making amends to people to deal with that stuff. And I made me amends. I made me amends to my family. I made amends to a lot of people and I owed a lot of money in Alcoholics when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did not want to pay it back. But the sponsor told me, Michael, he says, these people are good enough to give you this money. Are you man enough to give it back? And that hurt. But that's the truth. And I paid it all back, and I thank God I don't owe anybody anything today. And that's the way it has to be with me. Like, I have plenty bills to pay and all that stuff, but I don't owe anybody anything. Because I used to owe people money, and I couldn't walk down my own street. The fear of meeting these people. Like. So the freedom that comes would be for to clear away the wreckage of the past. And the first 9 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous get rid of the past. I've dealt with it to the best of my ability, and the promises came through in my life. And I was going to know a new freedom and a new happiness, to not regret the past nor wish to shut the door. And the greatest promise of all tells me in there that God is doing for me today what I couldn't do for myself. But God won't do for me what I can do for myself. And what I can do today is work that program in my life and do the best I can with it. I have to do the spade work. I have to put it in the action. You know, talk's cheap. I could talk for Ireland, but if I don't put in the action, I won't have a life. And I know that as well. And it starts off, it tells me then to live a day at a time. That day is today. And the first thing I done this morning, as soon as I opened my eyes, I thank God for waking me up this morning to give me the chance of another day on the planet. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I took that for granted all my life. You know, I never seen all my head was ever in was yesterday and tomorrow. I never lived in the day. I never had the ability. I never even thought about it. All I'd done was cry about the past and thank the world about, you know, tomorrow. You know, everything's going to be good tomorrow, but it never was. So the best thing I can do, you know, as I say, is start off my day. And the first thing I ask God to direct my thinking in the morning. Because my thinking in the morning is off the wall, like, of myself, planning and scheming and all that stuff. But I have to direct my thinking and ask him to do the best he can with me today. I read a couple of spiritual books in the morning to get me going as well. I send a few quotes to people, that friends of mine on the journey here. And I stopped thinking about myself. You know, and it's very important how I start my day. Do I want to crumble my way through it? or do I want to try to be there for other people today and look at the positive side of life? And I find out that the positive side of life is the best way to live today. I get on every day. I go out to the walk today. I walk most days. I'm retired. And I see nature today, the love of birds and animals and stuff that I never seen before. They were there, but I never paid any heed. But today I watch these things and study them, you know, it's powerful stuff. I go to fish. I fish in a lot of wild places today, and I see a lot of wildlife. It's powerful stuff. Nature's a powerful thing in my life today. And I have to accept the things I cannot change today, the serenity prayer. I have to say that many times each day, to accept the things I can't change. And I can't change people, places, or things. And I know today I don't even try. Because when I'm trying to fix people, I'm playing God, and I'm certainly not God. And you know, when I have to look back on my own life, I can't fix myself. And how can I think about fixing anybody else? The only thing I can do today for people is pray for them. People that's sick or people that's going through a bad time. And I do that for people, like, you know. I get on with my day and do the best I can. And this, you know, that serenity prayer tells me very, very simple. Like, I have to keep doing the things I do. I think about other people today, something I've never done before. You know, I'll be there for people today that needs a guiding hand if I'm asked, but I don't tell anybody how they should do this or should do that. It's none of my business. And I go on and listen. That St. Francis 11-step prayer is a powerful prayer in my life today. It tells me to turn hate to love, from doubt to faith, from despair to hope, and from darkness to light. It says in there, it is in giving that we receive. My God, that's the complete opposite of what I was in my life. Give of myself, and I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about being there for my fellow man and woman today that was there for me when I came into the fellowship and helped me through my journey. If I get to bed tonight, you know, to do my inventory, look back on my day, see how I done. Did I harm anybody today? Do I need to make amends before I get to bed, sleep? That's the stuff I have to do, and I've been doing that because it keeps me disciplined. And this is a discipline for me because I'm not a very disciplined human being. And after my inventory is done, my day is dumped. No matter what happened today, I can cry and moan about it, but it's gone. If I wake up tomorrow morning, it's a new day, new start, new challenge. And life is a challenge. Like, plenty problems in my life, but they're there to be dealt with. I don't hide. I don't have to run into a bottle with them anymore. Like, you know, I have to face them. But I have good guideline with people today as well. People I can pick up the phone to. I have a sponsor, and I have a God of my understanding, and that's what I need. And the 12-step asked me to give back. And if I lived to be 100, I could never give it all back. But I keep trying because I know that this is what's given to me freely. I give back freely. It's been a powerful journey for me, like the journey to self. By looking at myself, not at anybody else. Let other people live their lives today, no matter what they want to do. And you know, it's been a powerful journey. There's been, you know, there's a lot of tough stuff in my life as well. But it's all there to be worked at. I lost many friends through this disease, like, you know, and that's why I don't take this disease lightly. I work hard at it because I have to. And I don't, it's not because I want to do it today. Because this is, I believe, you know, the most powerful thing, you know, in my life. I never had a life till I got into the rooms. And the one thing my sponsor said to me when I started this journey, he says, Michael, if you want to start a new life in Alcoholics Anonymous, you have to get rid of the old one first. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I know today what he was talking about. The old life didn't work, but this new life works under any conditions. So I'm very, very grateful to be here tonight. Like, you know, and I always finish my share with 3 little simple statements that's very, very important in my life today. It says, faith makes all things possible, hope makes all things right, and love makes all things beautiful. Thank you, Mossy, for asking me to do service tonight. I always like to give back what was given to me. And I've lived to always say that. And I hope you all have a peaceful and happy evening. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I loved your chair. I love this program. I love what it can do for me. I love what it's done for my family. I love to see recovery in people. I love to see a smile on people's faces. And I love the fact that I don't carry the guilt, shame, and remorse anymore that I used to. You know, you went through the program step by step. And I'm glad that I had somebody from day one to, well, maybe not day one, maybe it might be 2 or 3 weeks in, that the big book was thrown at me, and I was told, this is how you get sober. If you don't want to do it this way, take your misery and off out of here, I was told. I didn't like the way I was being spoken to, but this guy had a Mercedes outside the door. His carpet was more comfortable than the bed we slept in. His fridge was full and mine was empty, and I had 3 kids in the house. There was nothing right in my house at that stage. And today I think my house is in pretty good order. You know, I'm blessed that with most families, the kids go and leave. With our family, they were coming back. And they're coming back and they're staying. Those that know me understand what I'm saying. But you know, there's 3 of us living here inside in the one place, and it's just beautiful. And I have 4 of my grandchildren here as well. The life I have today, you can buy it. You can have it free, but you can't buy it. And I'm glad, you know, something you said up there, as you said, give freely of what the big book says, give freely of what you find enjoyment. And I was given this freely, and I give it away freely. And for everyone that sent me all the prayers and kind thoughts and everything during the week, I thank you. I survived another. I lived to fight another day, anyways. Is what's happening, and I'll be on the road to Henley again tomorrow evening. So there you go. Back to the UK for a couple of weeks, and we'll see who we can upset over there. At that, I'll hand it over to Mick, my old pal Mick.
Thank you, Mossy. Thank you, Michael. Fantastic chair, Michael. I agree with you when you said that you believe you were born with a disease, because that's what happened to me. As far back as I can go, I always felt insecure, unhappy, blaming people. You know, it should have been like this. Oh, if onlys, you know, all stuff like that. And when I took a drink, it all changed. It gave me, in our firm, I worked in a brewery, and they used to say it gives you Dutch courage, and that's what it seemed. It seemed to iron out everything, but it didn't end up like that. I was living in hell, you know, and I came to this fellowship, and you know, I listened to people share, and I used to say to myself, I drink more than you for my breakfast, but I haven't got your problem. I had your problem and more, but I was in denial. And it took me quite a while before I stopped drinking. But when I stopped, you know, I realised it wasn't the booze, it was me. You know, there was something wrong with me. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, you people showed me how to work a program. Like you, I'm dyslexic. I don't learn from books, but I watch and I try to practice what other people do, and my life changed. My wife joined Al-Anon, and the house changed. I was sober in meetings, but not indoors, and I had to learn to bring the program indoors. And I married my wife, I think, for lust. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned to love her, and we ended up as soulmates until she died, you know. And even in then, you know, I heard a member say, you know, we don't lose them, you know, we look for the gift of having them. And that's what I done. And I have a very good life today. Until Mossy gets here, then it's going to be hell. But I'll just carry him, that's all, you know. And I want to thank you, Michael, again.
That's it, guys. Thanks everyone that done the readings. brain freeze. Thank Kathleen for her timekeeping. And you're the
Even preamble.
Stephen was the preamble, yeah. Thanks to me for the screen sharing and everything else that went on. And thanks, Mick, for being my sidekick. Life is good with you all. Just a reminder, guys, that this meeting is on 7 days a week. No, sorry. This meeting isn't on 7 days a week. This meeting is on every Saturday. At 6 o'clock, we have a meeting at 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday. Meeting on Sunday, step 11 meditation meeting at 1 o'clock. And we're online every morning at 8 o'clock for the morning chorus, with the meeting starting 8:30 to 9:30. And we'd love to see you there. And that's about it, guys. We have the yellow card. Who you see here?
What you hear here,
When you leave here.
let it stay here.
And where is Michael? Where are you going to me?
He's there.
Oh, jeez, there you are, sitting in the middle of the screen. No wonder I couldn't see you. Will you lead us on with the serenity prayer, Michael? And thanks for you've done a fantastic share, carried a great message, and that's what we're here to do. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Marcy. Thanks, everybody. What a lovely meeting. Really enjoyed it. A lot of help from it. I hope you all have a peaceful and happy evening. We'll finish it off with the serenity prayer, using God as you come. Understand the God of your understanding. God,
God,
May
grant
the
us
serenity
to accept the
the
things
things
that
that
cannot
cannot
change,
change,
courage,
to change the things that can,
and the
wisdom
wisdom
to know the
of
difference.
God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
folks.
very
Thank you,
much.
Michael.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Really
you,
nice,
Michael.
Michael.
God bless you all.
Well done.
Thank you, Michael.